I don't care. And I think it's perfectly fine that they did that, because this character has been around for like 100 years at this point. Do whatever you want, you know, make it fun, make it memorable. And so I am perfectly fine as Monty's soul has left his body.
Welcome back to Nerd Legion. It's been a while since we have done a new piece of content. And by new piece of content, I mean we make new content, but on new media. It's been a little bit, but we're back to talk about James Gunn's Superman, which we have seen in the past week. I think DoA liked it more than I did, but generally speaking, it has been quite successful. It's been pretty well reviewed. It has been so far very financially successful. As we speak, when this is being recorded, after the first weekend, it's at close to $250 million. So it looks like it's on track for like $1 billion box office. Should be a pretty major hit for Warner Brothers, I think, when the dust is settled on this. Yeah. People seem very positive about it overall. Now, some of these people may not actually like Superman, which we'll get into. They may have never actually seen or read anything Superman, I suspect. But, you know, James Gunn is coming off a pretty successful stint with Marvel, where he created the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which are beloved and extremely overrated. And he was then selected by Warner Brothers to lead the DC reboot initiative. And this is, it has to be said, if you guys are unaware, basically DC is now full committing to a Marvel-esque slate of TV and film. The TV shows are going to be on HBO, which already had The Penguin, which we have reviewed on this channel. Penguin was great. There are going to be more Batman films with Robert Pattinson after the Batman. The next film is actually, that has already been completed in terms of filming. It's in post-production right now, is Supergirl. But there's going to be a wide variety of DC heroes that are coming up. You guys can look it up if you're interested. Just expect the DC onslaught as we have suffered with Marvel for the past 15 years or so. Almost 20 years, I think. I came up, what, 2008, 2009?
I mean, more suffering as time has gone on, right? Because, I mean, I feel like some of the early Marvel films were pretty promising, right? The first Iron Man was pretty solid.
It was great.
I still love the first Captain America movie. That's my favorite Marvel movie. But
I mean, Winter Soldier was even better. I think Winter Soldier was like just one of the best Marvel movies.
I think
it really only
good.
got bad when it got confusing and they started to go into like tier 2 superheroes and posts.
Well, you're not a big Moon Knight
Endgame
fan
or Ant-Man? Like, no.
Yeah, I agree there. It's
Secret Invasion was dog shit.
And they just all started being the same too, right? Every movie kind of ended up being the same formula over and over again. They thought they had like cracked the code, and it's like, okay, now we can just do the same thing and just put a different costume on somebody, and everybody's going to be cool with that. And turns out, no, that's not a great way to continue your franchise. And so now we got the big pullback just in time for, like you said, the Marvel-esque DC universe to pop up, which is funny because like traditionally comic book wise, and I've never been like a giant comic book person, but I read a decent amount in high school and college, and when I was a kid, my bedtime stories were like Silver Age DC comics, because my dad was a huge Justice League fan, Legion of Superheroes fan, and so he had boxes upon boxes of comic books from the 60s, and so he would, which I think is Silver Age, I don't know, they were from the 60s, but he would read us those as bedtime stories, and so I got familiar with Superman and Batman and all that stuff. You know, Saturn Girl, they're these twins or whatever. I can't remember all of them. But anyway, that's like what I grew up with, right? And those always seemed a little bit more on the goofier side, a little bit more on the, you know, for fun side. And then in the 80s, when I started reading comic books and I was reading like Spawn and Lobo and Dark Knight and stuff, and it was like, that everything was gritty and dark, and that was like X-Men, like X-Force, right? That was what I kind of grew up with my own comic book reading then, after those DC bedtime stories as a kid. So to me, Marvel was always kind of the dark and gritty side, and DC was more of the fun side. And then when the movies came out, over time, the MCU went in more of like a tongue-in-cheek, goofy kind of bright, adventurous direction, and the DC stuff came out, and that was the Zack Snyder era, which is like dark and gritty, and I'm like, they kind of it felt like Christopher Nolan. Oh yeah, that's right, the Batman ones, but
yeah, and, so they kind of did Nolan Batman trilogy.
They did a little flip flop,
That's true,
tonally, compared to what we saw in the comics for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all this depends on which comic authors you're talking about, right? Because
I'm making
clearly
big generalities here, but
yeah. I mean, clearly, like, there's been a bunch of writers who have done very different things. There has been clearly gritty DC with people like Alan Moore,
Superman, and
So, but I agree with you, generally speaking. Yeah, it's interesting because my familiarity with superhero stuff mostly comes from my uncle, who is an Emmy-winning superhero animation writer. So he wrote Batman Superman Adventures. He was an executive producer on Justice League, the cartoon. He wrote for Batman Beyond. So like, actually, I've seen a lot more DC. And even though I would not, most of my graphic novel experience is not superheroes, I tend to go much more for like Ed Brubaker, Jodorowsky. I'm very much not superhero.
Where's our Meta Barons live action?
Yeah, where's our Meta Barons? So no one's insane enough for that.
I love Meta Barons. What an insane
Alan Moore, like Alan Moore's non-superhero stuff mostly. Although I've read a lot of Alan Moore's superhero stuff, including his DC stuff, like his Superman comics. But I will say, I am not a hardcore Superman fan by any means, but of superhero graphic novels, I have read more Superman than any other superhero. So I have a passing familiarity at the very least.
Get out of here!
Nerd Legion is brought to you guys by Factor. Now, you might be busy this summer. Of course, you're outside all the time, running around, busy schedules. And if you've only got a couple of minutes, instead of spending a bunch of money to order some takeout food, which might not be that good for you if you order takeout food like I do, maybe you don't always make the healthiest choices, or you're going to get some fast food, why not consider just getting some Factor meals instead? They are ready and microwavable in 2 minutes. They have lots of healthy options to support your wellness goals. They have tons of different options every week, 65 different options that rotate to keep things fresh. And they also have a ton of now Asian-inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. So enormous variety for you. And every week, it just shows up in a box with the meals you've selected. The box is cooled. You just pop them into your refrigerator. And then for the next week, you've got a bunch of easy meals on hand that is going to be much cheaper than ordering that takeout. So I really have enjoyed these when I've been in the States. And if you guys are thinking about trying it, why not use our code here and support Nerd Legion too? You guys can eat smart at factormeals.com/nerdlegion50 off. That's 50 off. And use code nerdlegion50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code nerdlegion50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off plus free shipping. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. I don't like Superman is not precious to me. There are certain things I enjoy about Superman and liberties taken within this film that I've personally, even though I'm a much more casual Superman reader, found pretty jarring, which is, I think, if you don't know or care about Superman, you may not care about these things, and that's okay. And you may find
that's kind of me, and we'll get into that. Go ahead.
You may find this movie a little bit more tolerable. However, I will stand for the Superman nerds, of which I am not really one, and bring up some of the points that I think are valid about the treatment of certain characters in this that may rile people up. if you are in fact a Superman, if you are a Superman stan.
Some people act like Superman is sacred. I feel like at this point, nothing is sacred with Superman. I mean, there is nothing there. It's very hard to find. And I was actually impressed that they found something to do in the Superman story that I hadn't heard before, which I'm sure we'll talk about, because they've done everything with Superman, right? I mean, he's officially died at least twice. The most recent one was in the 90s. He's officially been a bad guy. He's, they did like, what if he landed in Russia? He's been a zombie. Like he's went back in time. Like you can.
He's been killed a lot of times in like alternate timelines. Like
right, but
Alan Moore killed him in Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, right?
Sure. So in my opinion, the Superman character, there is absolutely nothing sacred about the Superman character anymore in the year of our Lord 2025. You can do whatever you want.
Sure.
With
Look,
Superman.
I think what's so interesting with Superman is that he is a fascinating character because you can put him in alternate timelines and have very interesting thought experiments.
Yeah.
But what's very important to those thought experiments are certain qualities of Superman and certain qualities of Lex Luthor, which are lacking from this film, which just make the world of Superman less interesting. Like, there are rules that have been discovered about how you treat Superman and Lex Luthor as characters. And if you deviate from them, you can, but it makes both characters worse. And we'll get into that.
And yet, this movie is a raving success so far.
I mean, people have bad taste. DoA, the Minecraft movie, was the biggest opening this year. So yes, people have dog shit taste. More news at 11. So let's talk about this, because it's interesting that James Gunn got in charge of DC. I think we should just briefly touch on Guardians of the Galaxy, because while I enjoyed the first film, I really dislike the other two films.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly when you say overrated. I think the Guardians of the Galaxy films may be the most overrated films in the MCU, with the amount people gush over them. I think they're okay. I think the first one definitely was the best
moments,
one.
But it is like here, and I will say that his style is very well suited to Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's like, here's some zany creatures and some funny quips, ha 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 ha,
zany
and
team.
Like zany team, and look at them not understanding each other, ha ha ha, and also here's some nice 80s rock and roll music that the kids have never heard but is really awesome. and like James Gunn, to be fair, including this movie, does deploy music very well. Some of the best moments in Superman are also him messing with the soundtrack, right?
And I like this movie more than any of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, by the way.
Oh, me too.
And I have reasons for that I will talk about in a moment.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't think this is a terrible movie. I just think it's very mid, and it's probably going to be overrated. And I think this could have been a much better movie, which makes me sad.
I think it's good. I think it's definitely better than mid. But I will say, too, going to see this movie was the first healthy day I had after a week of being like horrifically ill with the flu, like sicker than I've been in 5 or 6 years, no joke. So getting to be off the couch and out and doing something and feeling healthy finally again, and getting to see this movie, which is just a movie that makes you feel good. At the end, I just felt so great at the end of this movie, and I think part of it was because of my week, but part of it is because it's just such a fun kind of feeling good movie, and I like movies that just make me feel happy sometimes.
Yeah, and look, I think that a lot of people are going to vibe with this because it feels escapist at a time when I think a lot of people want that escape. We went through a long period where these DC heroes, whether it was Superman with Zack Snyder or Batman with Christopher Nolan, or even the latest, The Batman with Robert Pattinson, which I think is a much better film than this. But also it's not. We can actually just have evaluations of things. So it is a darker film, and obviously is a much more of a Superman film noir. But for me, it's much tighter in terms of how it's written. It's much more compelling. But at the same time, it is like another dark take on Batman. And Batman has had many iterations. You look at the Adam West Batman, obviously. You look at the Joel Schumacher Batmans, and Batman has been very zany, I would say, for a while. I mean, Tim Burton got 2 Batman movies, which are bad.
Well, I agree because the best 90s Batman movie is Batman and Robin. It's fantastic.
I actually, you know what, Doa? After rewatching Batman Returns for foreplay on this channel, I may actually agree with you.
It really is the best.
Shocking as that is.
Out of those 4 movies, it really is the best of them. Yeah. And everyone's, I mean, you would have said the same thing, right? Going back, Batman Returns. Oh, yeah, it's just incredible. Ooh. But when you go back and watch it, you're like, oh, this is not it's not what I remembered. Batman and Robin, it's the best one. It's the best one.
Yeah. And so the point is like Batman went from kind of silly and zany for really decades to we got into on screen till we got into much more of the gritty Batman, like the Alan Moore Killing Joke,
well, it started
Frank
with the Dark
Miller
Knight in the 80s.
Yeah, Frank Miller.
There.
Batman. So, and then that started being on film, and it's kind of just gotten darker. I would say.
I mean,
with the Batman.
That movie is absolutely the darkest
Penguin,
Batman movie that's ever been made.
Yeah, and the Penguin,
movie,
like holy shit.
Yeah,
The Penguin
great movie and great show. I like it when I want something very serious and gritty and depressing, but you don't always want things like that, right? And I do feel like you can't judge them 1-to-1 against each other because they're not going for the same things. It's like a apple pie versus pecan pie. They're both trying to be pies, but they're not trying to go for the same flavor, right? So I think you can look at objective parts of filmmaking and compare the two on that. But I think it's when you get like, oh, this is a better movie. Like everyone wants to argue right now, Man of Steel versus this.
Man of Steel is dog shit.
Yeah, well, that's obvious, right? It was just a worse movie in general. But I also think if you like one and not the other because of the tone, which is really what people are arguing over, most people, you can, well, like I said, there's 2 different arguments. There's the objective filmmaking side, and then there is the which tone do I prefer side. And most people think they're arguing over objectively which is a better movie, but what they're really arguing over is which tone they prefer. Which is a non-argument because
I agree. You can have these characters portrayed with different tones, but also at the same time, Man of Steel is a significantly worse movie than the James Gunn Superman.
It is, I think Henry Cavill's a fine Superman.
Sure, it's not because of Henry Cavill.
No, he's the best part of that movie. But I do think that the writing
it's
is
not
bad.
because of Russell Crowe either. I mean, Russell Crowe was a great casting decision, right?
Yeah.
Henry Cavill was a great casting decision. The problem is Zack Snyder is a horrible hack, and it's like you don't even get good action sequences in Man of Steel. I was so bored in the theater watching Man of Steel when it came out because it's just another instance of like punching each other through buildings forever and ever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
Right. The action sequences are not good. The story is not good. It was incredibly disappointing. And this was, by the way, before I was completely disillusioned by Zack Snyder because I liked 300 and I thought, oh, well, if this guy can do a good comic adaptation in 300, then maybe he can do something with Superman. I was wrong.
That's where he peaked. He peaked with 300. And that's,
it turns out he was capable of copying frame for frame a Frank Miller graphic novel. He was not capable of coming up with any good ideas on his own at any point in time ever. So anyway, Man of Steel is terrible. So if you dislike Man of Steel, which is the correct opinion to have, you might actually like this version of Superman.
Ow, ow, stop. Ow, stop. Crypto, ow, ow, stop it, stop. Sit, stay.
Hey guys, we can now reveal our grand prize winner of the last Free Nation merch giveaway. Congratulations to LFN Discord member Veltarn for winning the grand prize. You'll be receiving the full slate of Last Free Nation merchandise, including a Founders Edition t-shirt, joggers, desk mat, and more. Someone from LFN will reach out to help get those over to you. Also, if you guys are still planning on picking up some LFN merch, please be aware that our Founders Edition t-shirt, it's the one I'm wearing right now with the logo, it will also have a unique number on your sleeve, depending on when you bought it. Mine says Monte Cristo, but yours will say LFN member and a number. So this is a limited time option for you guys. Please help support us. We have actually figured out a way to reduce prices on the international shipping, so hopefully that's less of an issue for you guys now. If you live outside of the United States, we will stop selling the Founders Edition of the t-shirts forever the 3rd of August, 11 11:59 p.m. Pacific time in America. So now's a great chance to go ahead and pick up that merch for yourself. And of course, you can support your favorite shows on Last Free Nation directly by purchasing our brand new merchandise at lastfreenation.shop. Get your LFN t-shirts, joggers, desk mounts, mugs, and more. Here's a mug. Wow, looks great. We ship worldwide with free shipping to the United States on all orders of $60 or more. So be sure to pick up your Founders Edition t-shirt with your unique number by the 3rd of August at 11:59 p.m. Pacific before they are gone forever. And this version of Superman, like DoA said, is more whimsical. It is more silly. It is more Guardians of the Galaxy-esque, although mercifully it doesn't go full Guardians of the Galaxy, which was really my concern, DoA.
Yeah.
So even though I do think it's too Guardians of the Galaxy, at least it was reined in somewhat.
The zaniness made more of a sense in the setting that it was presented in, where Guardians of the Galaxy has a lot of non sequitur kind of humor, right? Where it's like, haha, this, which is a whole plague with the MCU, right? Where it's like, serious scene, stupid line at the end to ruin the tone, haha. You know, where this movie, I feel like, shows a lot of learning from the MCU and says, yeah, we can be funny and silly, but let's make sure the context matches the tone, right? Or the tone matches the context and all that. And they do a much better job of fitting things in there. You know, like and then when they do present sort of the tonal contrast, they do it in a way where it makes sense and the humor does land. Like, I think the scene where Superman and Lois are having like more of a serious conversation, but at the same time out the window, the Justice Gang are like beating up this big glowing like jellyfish thing from space, and he's like hitting with a giant green baseball bat and stuff, and it's like so, and you see this happening kind of blurred in the background, and it creates sort of like a nice lighting for the scene too, for their conversation. You know, he uses it to enhance the lighting for the conversation, but also add this sort of like undertone of humor and light vibes, because that's probably one of the most serious conversations had in the movie, you know?
It's a really good scene. I think.
So I think it does a great job of juggling that stuff really well. And when I saw that scene, I was like, this is great. Like this, I feel like this really shows learning again, you know, from the stuff that kind of went off the rails in the MCU.
Yeah. And I think that's where it's at its strongest, is the visual gags, like you're saying, you know, with the Green Lantern stuff and Nathan Fillion's appearance as Guy Gardner, which he looks like Guy Gardner from the comics. Like, he does have that stupid haircut.
I love it.
You know, where it crosses the line for me, DoA, is when we get into some of the like millennial language that is just not going to age very well. Like they talk about Metamorpho when Mr. Terrific sees him as a weird looking guy or a strange looking guy. Or he talks about like a weird baby. Like, it's just like, it's too casual a lot of the time. And honestly, those lines are delivered by Mr. Terrific, who otherwise is very technical and formal in his language. And so it feels even more out of place that he's kind of talking like a valley girl. And so for me, there are moments where it's just a little too cheeky, which I was not really a fan of. And that's just James Gunn dialogue, right? Sometimes
I don't know, Monty. I think the dialogue was fire, no cap. I'm hip with the kids and the way they talk nowadays.
So yes, to quickly run through the plot of this film, guys, obviously there are going to be spoilers. So if you're going to watch it and you care about spoilers, that would be the point where you skip ahead to the next timestamp, or, you know, turn it off until you've seen it. But basically, one of the refreshing things about this is that it's definitively not an origin story.
Yes.
Which,
how refreshing.
Thank God.
I was so happy. I was so happy when the movie started and it was just like, everything's already in progress. And like, fine, that's great. I don't need to know how Superman came to Earth. I know all that. I don't need to see.
But they also
2
explain
hours of
it, but in a clever way, right?
Yes.
Where they have Lex Luthor kind of explain it through invading the Fortress of Solitude and getting the recording at the beginning, right? So it's not that it isn't good at explaining to people via clever story techniques what has happened and where Superman came from and what the stakes are. It's just that we don't have to literally start from the beginning of him arriving in a space pod and crash landing in Kansas and seeing a montage of his childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, we do see that at the end, which
Come
is, again,
to grips with this,
clever.
my powers.
Yeah. It's like, we've seen that a million times. If you want to see that, you can go back and watch it. There's literally a TV show called Smallville about that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I never watched that show.
There's other Superman shows, or there's other Superman films about
there was
that.
There was a great Superman show in the 90s. Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. Dean Cain was a great Superman. Like that, I loved that show growing up. It was a ton of fun.
So there's tons of media you can consume. Obviously, graphic novels. But this is all to say that it does do a really good job of introducing new viewers without having to go through some really boring, for most people who are familiar with Superman, plot points about that we've seen 1,000 times. And it's done really well because this story definitely grapples with Superman's origins. That's a key part of the plot, but it does so without having to run us through montages of the origins.
Yes.
So effectively what happens is Lex Luthor steals a message from the Fortress of Solitude, which is Superman's Arctic getaway, let's put it that way. And he then decodes it and figures out there's more to this message, which is actually a big problem in the general lore of Superman, which we'll get into, where Superman's parents were actually saying he wasn't there to be a good mentor to people or anything like that. He's actually there just to bang as many chicks as possible to spread his DNA and become unquestionable Lord, God King of Earth.
Okay, let's talk about it.
We'll talk about that in a minute. No.
All right, what else?
No,
Okay,
we're gonna get through the movie
fast.
synopsis, and then we'll backtrack to that because that is some bullshit. So anyway, Superman then has an existential crisis because Lex Luthor publishes this all over the news, and it turns out Lex Luthor is actually he's going to imprison Superman so that he can't interfere with his plans of taking over this country and his funding of this international war between two fictional nations.
Well, he wants to kill him.
Well, sure, ideally.
Yeah.
Superman. Lex Luthor always wants to kill Superman. That's not new.
But like imprisonment isn't the long-term plan here. It's
right.
Kill him basically as soon as it becomes convenient.
So it turns out that Lex Luthor has actually cloned Superman and has his Superman. That's how he got into the Fortress of Solitude, because he had Superman's DNA in clone form. Then they fight as there's a pocket universe that Lex Luthor has created to imprison people, and he uses that pocket universe to start a potentially doomsday event where he starts to split dimensions, and Superman has to go unsplit dimensions as this crevasse tears its way through Metropolis. And while this invasion is being started across the world, because Lex Luthor basically wants to create his own country with his own technocracy where he is the leader. Yeah. Great name. And anyway, all of this is eventually discovered by the press, including Lois Lane. And that is published, and Superman eventually stops Lex Luthor from having the dimensional rift, whereas the Justice Gang, the future Justice League, which includes Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner is the Green Lantern. He's one of many Green Lanterns in DC. And Hawkgirl end up stopping the invasion simultaneously. Everybody's happy at the end. That is the quick and dirty summary of the film.
Yeah, and Alan Tudyk plays a robot again.
He's just a permanent robot.
He's just the the typecast robot VO guy now, I guess. he's
really good at it.
He's good at it.
He's really good.
Yeah. But as soon as Superman's robot started talking, I was like, K2SO, is that you? It is a different voice. He is doing a different voice, but it's not a super different voice, and you can always tell it's him. And he does a great job. I like his voice. I like the way he does it. But I'm like, really, they got Alan Tudyk to play the robot? I mean,
also Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk in the same movie again.
Back together again. Firefly reunion. We're getting so close, right?
I'll just here's my unexplained hot take of the day.
Okay.
it's really good that Firefly was canceled because we saw what it would turn into with the film, and it would have been shit. So now we can all remember Firefly fondly instead of just having it drag on and turn into garbage, which it definitely would have.
I don't
there
think
you guys go.
I don't think they ever. I think that movie struggled because they tried to cram too much into it and end it. I think if they would have had the breathing room of another season or two, it would have been much better.
Nope. Because they turned the Reavers into a disease instead of people going insane in space. So their end game was dog shit. And
yeah, but
we know what their end game was.
Was that really the whole plan, or was that a result again of trying to like, okay, we got to come up with a reason for the movie there? You know, would they have come up with that same thing if they had been able to make another season or two? I don't know.
Well, mercifully,
I don't think
DoA,
you
we
can
will
make
never
that
find
call.
out. So we could remember Firefly fondly for the 12 episodes or whatever it is that we have,
There you
which
go.
are good.
They are.
But I just don't think. I think that show would just been on an inevitable decline, and it would have just Game of Thrones itself eventually. So it's like everybody would be, if Game of Thrones only had 5 seasons, people would just be saying, "Wow, what a great show! Too bad they didn't continue it. I really want them to." You didn't want them to continue it. You didn't. Turns
Yeah.
out you didn't. So
But
Firefly.
which is
I'm glad it
better.
ended.
I'm glad shows like that exist, like, you know, because it's better to do well and then go off a cliff than just be a show that should have never been made, like the Wheel of Time show. That's a whole different podcast.
I don't know. I just think we should make good shows that continue to be good.
All right. Well, in the meantime, let's talk about why changing the Jor-El thing to have him be, you know, kind of villainous is great. Because, and here's why it's great, Monty, before you interrupt me, here's why it's great, is because I said earlier, they managed to do something I've never seen someone do in Superman before. And that is it, right? Because that is considered sacred ground, right? No one would ever impugn the pillar that Superman stands on, that he is a benevolent person sent from a benevolent planet to be an example to us humans as we evolve and grow on this planet, whatever. And no one would ever dare touch that. And so when that happened, I was just cackling, because I think it is devious. And for once, I feel like I can truly say my expectations were subverted. And I'm like, you know, I thought about it for a second. I was like, do I dislike this? And then I'm like, I don't care. And I think it's perfectly fine that they did that, because this character has been around for like 100 years at this point. Do whatever you want, you know, make it fun, make it memorable. And so I am perfectly fine, as Monty's soul has left his body, as Superman's dad and mom being a villain, telling him to get a harem and control the earth. And by a quirk of a software glitch, we didn't get that Superman. You know, I think that is a perfectly fine setup. It's, you know, the arguably nature versus nurture, whatever, but like, I think it's fine to throw that little twist in the movie, and ultimately it is a little twist to me. But I thought it was fun.
I don't give a shit if Jor-El is good or evil. I give a shit if it actually increases the interest of the character, which it just doesn't. That's the problem here, is that it's character assassination of Jor-El without it actually functioning for a higher thematic goal than you would have had otherwise. And I will explain this.
Okay, go ahead.
And DoA, by the way, if I went to your church and took a shit on the altar, you'd be saying, what an edgy choice. That altar wasn't sacred anyway. What a ridiculous thing to say, that some things can't be sacred.
The comic book character to a religion.
I'm just gonna go smear feces on the altar, and those like, how bold,
dude!
I didn't. My expectations were
artists have
subverted.
been doing that for decades, and we're like, whatever.
Exactly. So it's bad, and we know it's bad, and this is bad, and I will explain why it's bad. So it's not about
that's a
it's
very
not about whether Jor-El is good.
Level to go.
It's not about whether Jor-El is good or evil in the James Gunn Superman. Okay. The problem is that making him a fucking one-dimensional cartoon villain does nothing for the story or the character of Superman, especially in the way that it's presented in this. So Jor-El, we know historically in Superman, at every iteration, almost every iteration, I should say, Jor-El is benevolent, and he actually is sending his son away to Earth to be an example for humanity of goodness, and who's somebody who can do an inordinate amount of good, given the powers that he will have on Earth compared to Krypton. And Jor-El is reading the writing on the wall of the dying of Krypton and is making one of the hardest decisions a parent could make, which is to eject their child into space while you die. Right?
Sure. Sounds difficult.
It is a noble choice with noble goals. And the problem is that when you introduce it as, oh, there's this hidden corrupted message, and look at this, it's not that he's here to do good. It's the ridiculousness of the evil DoA. It's not that, well, if you should lead by example by being a benevolent dictator because you're Kryptonian and you know best, which does have some moral nuance to it. And there is an interesting thematic argument you could make here for might makes right. But they don't do that. They just literally say, haha, we're sending you there to be a god king and also fuck all the women and make a race of super Kryptonians.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a comedy element. There's a comedic element to it in a comedic movie.
It's so trash, though. It's so trash. And what people will say is that this sets up, his real parents are, Ma and Pa Kent. And look at that. He chose to be good because Pa Kent had a Kansas heart-to-heart with him, and they had a folksy Midwestern time, and boy shucks howdy, he sure is rural American, and wow, he grew up with a heart of gold because he chose to have that. Now, here's the thing, DoA. You can actually have Jor-El still be good and have that be true. You can have both things, and I will tell you how you have both things, because at the end, he finds that Lex Luthor finds the message. He could have just edited it to sound that way. Oh, it sure was legit. But also, he left out some of the message at the end. And so at the end of this film, you literally could have had him discover the entire message that was edited by Lex Luthor to make him look bad publicly. Sure. And if you had worded the message in a different way that was less explicitly, you are a god king, go fuck all the chicks, then you could have actually had, his parents were noble, but at the end of the day, it does matter what kind of person that you're going to be and how you were raised. And both things can be true because they were always true. And this is so core to Superman's character that both of these things are true. It has been always true of Superman that his parents had noble intentions, his real parents, and also true that his foster parents raised him to be the beacon of morality that he is. That is core to his character. And Superman's goodness is the core of Superman. That's what makes Superman Superman. So for him to just say, my real parents sure were evil, ha ha ha, but I'm gonna watch home movies of my adopted parents at the end is just so trash, though. No. It's so trash.
I don't think so. My answer to that is, who cares? I don't think
you just don't care about the more powerful message, because the most powerful message is that it is both nature and nurture, and he can have it all. He can have it all. And this is directly tied to the characterization of Lex Luthor in this movie, which is also very bad.
I think you're going way too far with this. I think, sorry.
DoA, answer the question. Do you want a wholesome Superman movie? Because you can't just make a wholesome Superman movie that is slightly goofy and then be like, but look at his dark past. It's trying to split the difference in a really shit way.
No, I think it throws a little twist in there, and we know how it's going to end because we know what.
But the twist makes the theme worse. It just makes it worse. If you want a wholesome movie, just make a fucking wholesome movie.
They did make a wholesome movie.
But it could have been more wholesome, like Superman. If you're saying that Superman,
so you demand maximum
if you're just leaning into the wholesome, you're just leaning into the wholesome Superman property. No, and by the way, this would have been much more appropriate in Man of Steel. Much more appropriate.
Sure, but they weren't bold enough to make that decision. Like I think it's fine. Like I really don't think it hurts the core of Superman's character or whatever, right? Because we always knew every Superman iteration was, he was the way he was a lot because of the parents who raised him in Kansas, as much as like the parents who sent him there, right? And that appreciation for the parents that sent him there was always, there. But the core of who Superman was sort of instilled in him by the people who raised him. That's fine.
Both are true.
But you can mess with it. It's perfectly fine to mess with it. I don't see any problem at all.
If it aligns thematically with the movie. It just doesn't. It's literally just character assassination to be edgy for no reason in a movie that is not trying to be edgy.
You can't assassinate a character that is different in this version of Superman because his personality is the way it is in this version.
What logic is that? Of course you can. That if you just don't make a Superman movie. Of course you can assassinate a character. Just don't fucking make a different movie with a different character.
Jor-El stan.
No, I just want there to be internal consistency in the tone of the movie and also in the themes of the movie, and that's not what this does. And it's not that the choice makes Superman a more compelling character, because there are ways to have it both true, and they do it because they are trying to say it's who you choose to become. But that was always true of Superman in the first place, and you don't need to make this edgy choice to make that true. That's why this is frustrating.
I don't think it hurts it at all. I think it adds kind of it adds a funny twist to it, and you know it creates the nice moment at the end where it's like, you know, now he is watching the home movies from Ma and Pa, and that is a nice moment, sure, where you
can have that moment doesn't have to go away,
because this version of Superman was a little bit too tunneled on, you know, that message and the parents. You know, it seemed like he almost was using it as a crutch, and so once he was sort of freed from it,
you can still have that moment. By the way, you can still have the message.
You can also not have that too, and you can do it in a different way. The way it is,
I fixed it by saying you could just have the message.
Good job.
I did. All you do is you have it be a message that is authentic but edited heavily by Lex Luthor to misinform people.
That would have been
by the way,
much more obvious.
An extremely interesting take on modern media as well, which is taking clips out of context, and then when he gets the full context later, then all of it can resolve.
That would be way too on the nose.
The whole thing's on the nose, DoA. He has fucking monkeys that are writing troll posts on the internet. That is the most on the nose part of this whole fucking movie.
I will say I didn't like how quickly everyone was just like, oh, I guess it's authentic. I feel like there should have been a little bit more of a demonstration of veracity to the full recording, right? I don't think there was enough initial assumption that Luthor had edited it, right? And there was enough proof that he had.
It looked edited in the video that they showed us.
The implementation of that, you know, was a little bit. That was one of my least favorite parts of the movie, is how quickly everyone just accepted it, right? Because you'd think naturally Luthor would edit it, but if they had made it, oh, Luthor just messed with the footage, I would have been disappointed in that, because that would have been the most obvious thing, you know. And I don't like it when I don't like it when I can constantly predict, you know, every beat of a superhero movie like this. And if that had happened,
I don't think a lot of this film is predictable. I think it's just a stronger movie if you have the edited footage and you reconcile both sides of his background at the end. I think it becomes incredibly powerful, and especially because
still weaponized information.
Let me explain why I think that it is so important to not have this aspect of Superman undermined. Sure. And it is because they also, in the James Gunn Superman, mess with Lex Luthor's character in really unfortunate ways. And we have to remember that Lex Luthor, at his core, what makes him a compelling villain is that he's right a lot of the time. He's right about the danger of Superman. And the thing is that he himself is dangerous, and he himself is a narcissist and a sociopath, but he's also brilliant, and he's not wrong about the danger Superman it poses. Sure. But where he is wrong is because Superman is so wholesome in terms of his character that even though he represents a potential danger, he never represents a real danger. And that is the tension that is core to the Superman-Lex Luthor relationship. So if you start undermining him and saying, well, is Superman actually good because his parents wanted him to be a god king with a bunch of fuck slaves? And then Lex Luthor comes, then Lex Luthor looks right, but not for the right reasons. And Lex Luthor's character also, I will just say this straight up. I like Nicholas Hoult. I really do. I love him.
Good actor, for sure.
I love him in The Great. I love him in Mad Max Fury Road. I tolerate him in Nosferatu. He is a bad casting choice in this movie. And not because he doesn't do a good job of playing the Lex Luthor that he's given. It's just that Lex Luthor, as he is written and portrayed, is bad in this movie because he doesn't actually have the integrity and the poise and, you know, the presence that Lex Luthor is supposed to have, because he has to be this rock solid intellect. And he can't admit as Nicholas Holt's
This is
Lex
the
Luthor
Thrawn
does
argument again.
in an extended monologue in this movie about how he is envious. We all know he's envious. We all know it because of his actions, because of his obsession with Superman. Superman himself calls out Lex Luthor constantly saying, you know, Lex, you're a fucking genius. You could do a lot more good for humanity if you really just stop thinking about me. But all he does is think about Superman because he's jealous, right?
Of course, yeah.
But he doesn't. The whole point is he's a flawed character that isn't going to openly admit that over and over and over again. It's that Lex Luthor sees the danger of Superman, and he uses that rightly as a justification for his own envy to destroy Superman, because he's not willing to admit that Superman actually, his character is what makes him so enviable and so valuable. And Lex Luthor lacks the character. He lacks morality. That's
you really
the whole
didn't
thing.
like the Christopher Reeves era Lex Luthor then too, huh?
Gene Hackman.
Yeah, because this is much more in that
no.
vein, right? I mean, and because everything you said about Lex Luthor, the character, is correct if you want to do that version of Lex Luthor in a more serious Superman situation. And I think you can. And I think they could have done that Lex Luthor in this movie and it would have been fine. I think the choice they made is because they weren't going for that kind of movie. They weren't going for that kind of Lex Luthor. They wanted a more mustache twirling kind of goofy villain,
But Joel,
right?
This is just a worse version of the movie. You're like, well, they could do the good version of the character with this insane tension that made Lex Luthor and Superman the definitive superhero villain
That's
of
your
the
fan
DC
fiction,
universe,
and
except
you're
for
sticking
maybe
to it. I understand.
Batman, Joker.
Sure.
Okay. There are certain qualities to these characters that make it interesting. And when you undermine those qualities, you make the conflict less interesting. And they chose to make the conflict less interesting for the lulz.
Yeah. That's a choice.
So it's just worse. It's just worse. It's just a worse version of it. We have what, 60, 70, 80 years of Lex Luthor Superman conflict to draw off of here. It has been built by many people over time and refined into what it was. And so I think it is a mistake to make Lex Luthor this way. And it's a bummer. And I'm going to talk about what I like about this movie because there are many things that I like, but these are like the big problems where I think this movie could have been really good, but there are things that are holding it back from being really good. And there are choices that were made about the characters that I think make the characters and the themes worse.
I think I'm kind of torn on it, on the Lex Luthor thing. Because on the one hand, like, I really just, maybe it's because I just don't care about superhero movies anymore, really, at all. But it's like, I've always liked the goofy mustache twirling villains more than in these types of movies, more than the very serious, well-written, dramatic villains, right? Sure, you can do that, and that wouldn't be bad, but I just don't think it's the right choice for this type of Superman movie, This is very much like the 70s Superman. This is the tone, right? It is supposed to be goofy. I think they obviously went for a Lex Luthor that's very much like reflective of this era, right? In terms of social media, in terms of narcissism, in terms of a young tech guru kind of figure, right? And that I'm kind of like, it was a little bit too on the nose where he's like, Mark Hyperberg, basically, where it's like the
thing is, Lex Luthor is just not a sniveling character, but unfortunately, Nicholas Hoult is just always going to come across as a little bit sniveling, and he does that extremely well. He's really good at that, but that's just how he is, man.
I didn't love this Lex Luthor, but I definitely don't dislike it as much as you do. I think at the end of the day. But then again,
okay,
I don't think I could point to a better Lex Luthor, So
I mean, Gene Hackman.
Sure. Very similar though.
So
even
let me talk about a few things. Okay. And I don't hate the goofy tone, by the way. I want to reiterate that. And actually, I think that future Superman movies by James Gunn might actually be quite good. And here's the reason why. Because there are a bunch of extremely goofy villains in Superman.
Solomon Grundy.
Mr. Mixius Pitalik.
Oh,
holy
right.
shit. insanely goofy. Like they had to make a bunch of goofy villains because Superman is so strong. So interdimensional villains. I mean, Brainiac's pretty goofy. How he's like putting all civilizations in bottles. Like there's a ton of stuff. There's like a lot of room here that I think. Look, let's be real. Lobo's pretty goofy. I love Lobo. Jason Momoa has now been cast as Lobo, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a goofy guy. He's an increasingly goofier guy.
He's in Minecraft the movie.
I mean, if you watch or the Fast and the Furious films, he is like a wacky villain in Fast X.
Yeah, and by the way, Jason Momoa is going to be Lobo in the Supergirl movie that is already done filming, so that's coming soon.
Oh boy, that I'm
we'll see how he is.
Less excited about after the portrayal of Supergirl at the end of this one, where I'm like, oh, she's just because I can already see the whole stupid movie, right? She just loves to party. She doesn't take her powers and responsibility seriously, and
I mean, this is the James Gunn universe that they have decided they wanted.
I have already.
It's going to be exactly what you think it is.
I saw 30 seconds of that character in this movie, and I was like, oh, well, now I already know the entire plot for this next movie, and so surprise me, Mr. Gunn, but I don't think I will be surprised.
I mean, here's the real surprise they could do. She gets into a toxic romantic relationship with Lobo. That would actually be kind of interesting. That'd be kind of interesting, Noah.
Yeah, and then they kind of just go around and like wreak havoc and stuff. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, it turns into Wild at Heart, but with Lobo and Supergirl, where they just fuck and then like create havoc. Look, I'm down for the rated R, sexually explicit Supergirl with Jason Momoa and
I'm sure
as
you
Lobo.
are.
I'm gonna say that. Do it. You won't, you cowards. But in any case, like my point is that the goofiness of Superman actually does play well with a lot of the Superman villains. And so I think probably they felt some sort of obligation to include Lex Luthor because he is such a famous villain in this one. Yeah, but there's a lot of other really weird villains that I think will have a chance to be very successful in a James Gunn Superman universe.
Isn't there like another alien guy?
Just cast Danny DeVito as Mr. Mix's Spitlick, like we all know you will.
Yeah. Isn't there? Is Martian Manhunter? Is that Marvel or DC?
He's part of the Justice League.
Oh right, that's what I thought. Okay, so that's him. You could do that. I mean, you could have one of the Green Lanterns be bad. Or you could have, the Yellow Lanterns? There's like some hue of lantern that's like evil lantern dudes. Isn't there? I don't know. Bring back Ryan Reynolds.
Anyway, there's a bunch of stuff you can do that I think can be more successful than this. So like as frustrating as certain aspects of this movie were, I do think that this tone will be more successful with certain other villains and could be quite fun.
We need good goofy superhero movies again. Not MCU stuff. Good goofy.
Yeah, I will just also say that like the goofiness fits really well into Crypto, the dog. I mean, the dog is just fucking goofy. Like it was always goofy in Superman. Then he had a stupid dog with a stupid cape.
I feel like there was subtle foreshadowing of Beppo the super monkey here because all those monkeys escaped at the end. Maybe one of them becomes the super monkey. There's a whole like zoo of super animals. There's a super horse. There's a super cat. If you go back and look at the old Justice League stuff, there is an entire like animal pantheon of animals dressed like Superman that are a super version of those animals.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot I think to work with in the future, and there are other aspects of this film that went very well if we're thinking about an expanded DC universe.
Mm-hmm. First, I don't like CG dogs, by the way. I don't care how. And this was like one of the best CG dogs I've ever seen.
Look, Crypto's dumb.
You can still tell. I hate CG dogs.
This is a universe that can play with all the dumb parts of Superman and make it kind of funny.
I accept it.
Like the other metahumans in this, for example, Mr. Terrific is maybe the best part of this movie. His character is great. Fantastic.
Terrific.
Yeah, he is extremely funny in this film. Adi Gathegi, I think Yeah, Eddie
nailed it.
Eddie Gathegi. Sorry,
I'm sure you.
he's Kenyan. He's Kenyan. Sorry if I butchered your name, sir. I think he's just wonderful in this. His deadpan humor is really funny. I think they write his dialogue extremely well. He is really interesting, I think, as a character in this, in terms of his abilities and the way he fights. The single best fight sequence is with him, where he puts Lois Lane in the dome, and it's like amplifying the music from the radio, so we get a classic James Gunn music fight scene with all of his spheres rocketing around. It's really fun. I mean, he's very fun to watch.
Yeah,
excellently portrayed.
Also,
really
fits
liked it.
right in with the goofiness too, because he's got a big T on his face and he flies around in that chair,
overly serious.
Yeah, it's there's a great like undertone of humor with every single character in this movie, right? And he fits that too, where you're like, this character's really cool and he's doing all these tech things and he's like deadpan and all that. He's funny, but he's still floating around in a goofy chair, and he's got a big T on his face and all that. He has a UFO. Like, it's I love that they just embraced the goofiness. In the 90s, they would have tried to make
Mr. Terrific.
Yeah, exactly. Like in the 90s, they would have tried to make it cool, right? And I'm so glad that we've given up on trying to make things quote unquote cool and just it is like it is, and just embrace it, right? And this movie does that fully to the best degree with him, and Nathan Fillion's hair.
Nathan Fillion's just great in this. Like Nathan Fillion has been criminally, I think, underutilized in his career. He went from Firefly. Obviously, he starred for many years in Castle. But in terms of actual like character actor film roles, we never got to see the Uncharted movies, which would have been great for Nathan Fillion when he was younger. And I feel like we missed a lot of great potential roles from Nathan Fillion in his prime. And he's a little bit older now, but he works really well in this movie. I think his character is very funny. He does the arrogant dimwit thing extremely well.
Yes.
My one complaint with Nathan Fillion is just the writing, because the Justice Gang joke got extremely old and not funny. It was never funny in the first place, and is especially not funny the 8th time it happens in this movie.
I did like the one moment at the end with it where the element man wants to join, and he's Metamorpho, whatever, and they're like, who's this freak, right? And then he's like, Justice Gang, I like the name. And then even before Nathan Fillion's character says it, you're like, oh, he's in, because everyone else is hating on the name the whole movie. So I like that there was a good payoff at the end, but it was they reminded us too many times.
Bad joke.
Like they didn't need to use it that many times. It was like I agree, it was like 8 times. I think they could have done it like 4 times, and then it would have.
No, it was like the answering machine gag in Surf Ninjas, man. I was just like, oh god, not again.
It's yes. Like the Leslie Nielsen hilarious can't get to his phone fast enough, so the answering machine picks up joke. Hasn't that aged well? Everyone can
I
relate
accept
to that.
not all of I accept that not all of James Gunn's jokes are going to land, because you kind of forget those. And when James Gunn does land a joke that is good, it's actually very funny.
Yeah.
So and we've seen that in Guardians of the Galaxy. There are a ton of lame jokes in Guardians of the Galaxy, but there are some really good ones too.
This one had the Justice Gang one had a good payoff, but it was way too stretched during the other parts of the film, for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, what more can you really add to it? I think I had a lot of fun watching it, and like I said, it was refreshing. It was just, I think, more than anything, the word I would use when I talk about my positive feelings towards Superman 2025 is refreshing. In that, it didn't try to be overly dark and moody and edgy. It didn't try to. It was funny, but it didn't try too hard to be funny. A lot of the humor fit contextually. They let the more serious dialogue be more serious without polluting it with a bad one-liner at the end, like the MCU does all the time still. So I think it was just, if you said, all right, we see the MCU, we see a lot of the things that could be done better there. Let's make a version of that, but let's get that stuff right. And I think this movie, for the most part, does it. I think it's better than like any MCU thing that's come out in a while. So I think they did learn a lot from what's happening over there, and put it to good use here. So yeah, I mean, I'm less excited again with the next one being Supergirl, not because I'm like an anti-Supergirl person, but just because of the portrayal of her character in this movie being sort of just like the drunk party animal, you know. Then I'm like, I feel like I already know exactly what the plot is going to be, you know, and that disappoints me. So we'll see if I'm surprised or not. But like I said, I don't think I'm going to be, and so I'm not looking forward to that too much. But beyond that, you know, we'll see what else they can do with it. I want to see a Justice League with those three being like the core to grow from. I think that could be funny.
Yeah, I will say, like, I definitely found more likable about this movie than dislikable. It's just the things that I found dislikable were very dislikable.
It's a Thrawn thing. You don't like smart villains not being smart enough for you. This is a theme with you.
I mean, Thrawn is just objectively dumb in Ahsoka. So
right,
I mean, that's not even really an argument. He's just
it's the same thing though. You want your smart villains to be smart. You know, I think Monty's secretly like, I could be a better villain than that.
I mean, here I could. That's true. But it's not hard to be better than them, because what I want is for them to be better than I could be at being a villain. That's what I want.
You want something to aspire to. You're like, I'm already that good of a villain.
Exactly. See, Thrawn in the books is very smart.
Yeah.
And Lex Luthor is frequently very clever, but he's just not in this. And I think that's another annoying aspect of it. But in our previous conversations, I think you put this very well, which is that Lex Luthor's basically just controlling him like a fighting game character where he just yells out combos. That scene's really bad. I don't know.
I like that we are starting the movie with Lex already. I do like, though, that we're starting the movie with Lex already having a leg up on Superman by he's already cloned him. We don't know that yet. And he's already like basically memorized the combo list for Superman and like has input it. He can just input it from memory into, you know, his clone guy basically. So I do like that we start at a point where there is a legitimate threat from Lex Luthor to Superman, you know. And sure, the implementation, I don't really like the combo list thing, but I kind of do at the same time, because it's like it just feels it felt like a good, you know, brainy supervillain thing to do, where I'm going to create this thing to fight for me, but I'm going to take direct control essentially of it. The mechanics of it don't make any sense. Like, obviously,
I mean, just think about the dialogue.
But just you have to not think about it.
So this is another flaw with Lex Luthor's character in this, is that he says brains over brawn Superman, but he literally is just using Superman's brawn to defeat Superman. Exactly. So it makes no sense. And then Superman says brains over brawn back, and then he whistles and calls in his dog, which is also just not brains over brawn.
It's
you
like
just
less brains than
ever.
It's a dog.
So this is my problem: is they say things, but it's not actually smart, right? It's just stupid.
Not all the dialogue was perfect.
But the concept is not even like that's Lex Luthor's whole thing is brains over brawn. He's like, but what if I just made bronze and then yelled fighting moves, and then that's how I let me check my notes, didn't win.
I think it's fine for this. I think you're not supposed to really be able to apply, you know, any sense of true realism to any of this, where it's like you just kind of
it's not about realism. It's just about internal consistency and logic.
But sure, I can accept that Lex Luthor has a Superman clone that he can do fighting. He
Lex
basically
Luthor
plays like a fighting
shouts
game character.
brains over brawn while he punches someone. Like, what is that? What is that?
I have no explanation, but but it doesn't I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
I do want to touch on some of the actors too, because David Cornsweet's pretty unknown. I think he did a great job.
Awesome.
Really
job.
liked his performance.
Yeah.
He has that. He has the look. He has the innocent boy shucks howdy about him.
Yeah.
He really when he says he loves everybody, you really believe him.
Yeah.
And you believe that he has this naivety, and you believe he has this innocence. He crushes it, man. I think he is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane has the fierce intellectual curiosity and drive that you want. I think they have a real chemistry, Brosnahan and Corin Sweat, when they're even in the thornier parts of their relationship, when they're working through how different they are, you never get a sense that they don't care about each other, which is hard to do. Well, it's hard to act out those sequences.
She almost feels like she was like genetically engineered to play Lois Lane. Like, I mean, you're really, the way she plays the character and her look, just, it seems that is Lois Lane. You know, that is one character where you're like, you accept it immediately, right? Sometimes in these movies, when you see these iconic characters recast, it takes a little while to adjust, or you never really do, and you're like, okay, this isn't the way I would think of, you know, this character appearing. But no, she nailed it. Great casting, great performance.
Also, they portrayed Jimmy Olsen extremely well.
Yeah.
Very believable as the Cub reporter who has that naivety to him. I know this is going long, but I do want to mention a couple other points that I think are good to bring up. The fight sequences are generally pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And the action sequences I think are pretty solid. The lighting in this film is really good.
Oh, yeah.
You get a lot of shadows. You get a lot of interesting dark scenes that are appropriately lit. It's not just kind of evenly lit. The color grading in this movie is really good. When the trailer came out at the end of 2024, a lot of people were complaining that it looked too blue, that it was too cool in terms of its tone. Well, Metropolis in this movie is very golden colored, which it is in the graphic novels. You get a lot of these deep reds, really good color saturation. I think the movie just looks pretty to watch.
Yeah.
So all of those aspects make it, I think, visually quite compelling. I enjoyed all of that. They
colorful
revived
films.
the John Williams score,
Yeah,
Noah. They brought it back from the original. That is an all-time great movie score,
Absolutely.
and they brought the theme back. That was an excellent decision.
And that was
really
a decision
good.
based on them saying, we want to associate ourselves with those Superman movies, you know, and we want to add to that legacy, not necessarily the Superman movies that have come out in the last 20 years, you know? So I like that a lot too, hearing that theme. John Williams, I mean, you can't go wrong with John Williams anyway, to begin with, right? But I liked that there was definitely like a distinct nod to say, this is our tone too, you know? This is our Superman, you know? But that, and like, it's just so nice to see a movie with color, right? And man, you want to make comparisons to Man of Steel. Like, yeah, that too. But
I mean, shout out to Denis Villeneuve as well, who in Dune has a great use of color and shadows,
sure.
right? Yeah, you know, it does feel like the actual craft of lighting and color is coming back in the movies after it has languished for the past decade or two.
I'm tired of looking.
Not been good.
I'm tired of looking at things as if like some sort of poltergeist has come and like drained the life from it, you know, before it started rolling.
And
thank
fake
goodness.
lighting where it's just like lighting from every possible side. Oh my God, a shadow! Get rid of it immediately.
Yeah. It's nice to see colors again.
So these are all like just more technical aspects that I think were really well done. Look, overall, I'll say one final thing about DC in general. I do find it weird, Doa, that I'm curious how they're going to reconcile this Superman universe with the Batman universe that they've already created.
Just don't have a
because,
crossover.
like we said,
just don't.
Yeah, I would advise that because like what we've seen from the Batman, where it not only dialed back significantly like Batman's physical prowess, it really focused on his detective skills, and that movie just is a film noir movie, and is great.
Yeah.
Here's a hot take: it's actually my favorite Batman movie. I think the Nolan ones are overrated. Especially Dark Knight.
I think it is, from a filmmaking standpoint, objectively the best written Batman movie. That said, it's not my favorite Batman movie, but I think objectively it is the best Batman movie.
See, people love The Dark Knight, and there are things I love about The Dark Knight. If The Dark Knight had only been about the Joker, it would have been awesome. But people like to remember The Dark Knight because the first scene is so amazing, and all the Heath Ledger Joker stuff is so good, and they just conveniently forget the entire Two-Face part of the movie. And I love Aaron Eckhart, man. But that part of the movie is bad. And people are just like, I'm just going to delete that entire part of the movie from my brain. But the Batman, I think, is really good. And I think it was a really bold choice to make it a detective film noir movie as opposed to an action film,
and
really.
Super long. too.
Yeah, it's 3 hours long. Paul Dano is great in it as the Riddler.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously, like, The Penguin was shockingly good as a TV series, and I had no expectations. Like, I had low expectations, I'll say. And it is dark as fuck.
Yeah.
And so my point is like, if we're gonna do goofy DC universe, and we already have the darkest version of Batman that we've seen ever, probably in media, I don't know if we can like have those worlds collide and have it make any kind of sense.
You don't need to.
Yes, I agree. Don't.
We do not ever have to have a Batman Superman crossover again in the history of mankind. That is fine.
Except until they make the Justice League movie again, DoA, then they're gonna have it.
Did you know their moms have the same name? But you don't like. You could do sure. You want to do a Justice League thing, you can do that, and you can just have somebody mention like, "Oh, Batman isn't coming. He's too busy with Gotham." Whatever, just mention him.
There's probably a funny way to do this, DoA, where Robert Pattinson is just like in disbelief about how goofy everything is.
Yeah.
That might actually be funny.
You could have him. It
might actually be funny,
and that would be almost kind of fitting to the way the Justice League stuff was, where he was kind of the overly serious one in the group sometimes, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, you could utilize Robert Pattinson's Batman in sort of a fish out of water situation in the James Gunn DC universe. That would be fine if used sparingly. That would be like a one scene gag thing, and then Batman has to go home, you know? You know, but we don't need Batman versus Superman. We don't need a huge team up, you know?
Yeah. So that's my concern, is that I feel like DC has this really good thing going with Batman right now, and I don't want it. I don't want the goofiness to like infect that. Similarly, I don't want the darkness of that Batman to infect this Superman.
Yeah,
like
sure.
I just don't want. I like both things and the directions in which they're going right now, and I appreciate them. And I do think that this Superman movie is timely. Sometimes you don't have to have a good movie, DoA. You just have to have a movie that gets the vibe right for people at the time. And I think in a world where people do feel doomerist about things
and helpless,
that having having this wholesome movie that reminds people of noble qualities is actually quite good. Like, it feels good to watch this right now. It does. It's
a reminder too that, like, you know, in a age where we're seeing absolutely horrific things happen worldwide on a daily basis, you know, and part of it too is that you know, we just have so much more access to it than any other part of humanity too. You know, horrible things were always happening, but a lot of times you just didn't know about it because the internet didn't exist, right? So being inundated with all this stuff that is horrible, and as a normal person you feel bad about, is not a healthy thing. Our brains are not built to process this much tragedy being injected into our brains on a daily basis, right? And so it's a good thing to be reminded that, you know, being a good person in your immediate sphere, you know, helping the people around you and just being good to the people that you meet on a day-to-day basis, that is what you can do. You know, you can't go solve these giant conflicts yourself. You can't save the world, right? But, like, you know, in a realistic sense, this is what, you know, a way you can do one of the things you're here to do, right? So I think this movie is a good reminder. And
heroism is apolitical. Real heroism is apolitical. Absolutely,
right? And so, yeah, I do like that part of the message here is, you know, just be good to people around you, you know? It's that simple. You know, that's how you can be Superman, because that's really who Superman is. He's just good to the people around him, you know? And he has the ability to be around many more people because he's super fast. But ultimately, that's just who he is. He's just a good guy, and you know, you can just be a good person too. So I do think this is an important movie tonally for right now for that reason.
And in spite of his power, it's his character that sets him apart, right? That makes him who he is, because he could absolutely, as Lex Luthor in not this movie frequently alludes to, he could use it for very terrible things, and yet he doesn't. You know, he's not perfect. He's emotional. He's flawed in some ways. He's hasty, and they do a good job showing that. And the other aspect of this film is I really liked how they showed the modern media landscape, selfie bimbos. You know, they included a lot of like contemporary elements that worked really well.
It was very funny that all of her selfies were basically what brought down Luthor in the end, because she had Because hilariously, she always does selfies with like important events happening behind her. And stuff.
The documents, like
I thought that
the
was really
war plans. It was
that was
very,
very
funny.
funny,
And it was a good choice. It was a good choice,
and it was goofy and unbelievable, but in a funny, good way.
Was it unbelievable? I feel like it's very
To the extent that she was like, they had selfies of her just laying on all these like top secret documents and stuff. Like, yeah, funny. I mean, there was a lot of good sight gags with that. So yeah.
But the incorporation of modern elements, I think, was very successful here, except for the mind-controlled troll monkeys. That was stupid. But the other stuff,
it was a little
the
bit
results
funny
of the troll monkeys was very funny. Hashtag super shit. Hashtag Superman harem. Like that was very funny. I thought. Yeah. I just wish it hadn't been monkeys. You know.
Yeah.
If you just said I have troll AI servers, it would have actually been funnier.
Again, it was a bit on the nose, but again, I think that's the level of goofiness and zaniness you want to go to in this. Like, I didn't know, it was a little bit too on the nose, but only just, I think.
So anyway, 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. Geez, I mean, I'd give this one at least.
It was an average movie. It was mid.
I'd give it at least a 7 out of 10. I think it was a solidly good movie. 7.5. I liked it. I had a lot of fun. It made me feel good, which I can't remember the last time a movie just genuinely made me feel happy and good and positive at the end of it. And you know, it was generally well written. It wasn't perfect, obviously, but it was sure a lot better than a lot of the other stuff that comes out right now. So I think it's certainly better than 5 for me. At least a 7.5. You can't even give it a 5.5. You can't even put it solidly on the side of being a good movie, really.
So no, because I would give the Batman like 7 or 7.5 out of 10.
So is this your new ultimate mediocre film then?
It's pretty mediocre though. It's pretty mid. But it is a fun watch. Like it's not like I regret it's not like Captain America: Brave New World where I literally just like regret walking into a movie theater. This is much better than that. So it's like it is, if you have some time, I think it's worth seeing it in a theater. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's not unmissable. It's not crucial. The things that this does makes me more the thing it does most is just make me interested in future DC movies that I think could be handled better.
Go have fun. Go watch it. If you watch it, if you go see Superman, I can pretty much guarantee you, unless you have a heart of cold hard stone, you'll have a good time.
And contrary to what DoA says about me, I actually did have a good time. But it's not deep. So
there you go. He needs it.
All
deep.
Right. We'll see you guys next week for more Nerd Legion. Till then.